Hi, everyone. Welcome to Miracules podcast, where we discuss topics related to active lifestyle. I am Tarun, and today we would be talking about how to get start to living an active lifestyle and the importance of recovery in that. To discuss with us on this topic, we have the super talented Ms. Saumya Khullar, who is a qualified sports scientist, performance nutritionist with over 8+ years of experience working in India, US, and now in the UK sports and health industry. She spent the last 4 years working on a multidisciplinary high performance environment as an athlete performance health lead at IIS, JSW Sports, and in Sports Authority of India as the lead exercise physiologist, working with both the Olympic level as well as grassroots level athletes. She also initiated the Critical Female Athlete Support Project, a pioneering initiative in India that got acknowledged and published in various Indian national publications. She enjoys working with athletes and the general population to support them through their fitness journey while building a solid foundation for training and recovery. She is currently based out of Scotland, pursuing her PhD in sports nutrition for young Scottish footballers. A very warm welcome, Soumya, and thanks for taking out the time.
No, thank you very much for having me, and thanks for the introduction.
And
Really happy to be here.
in case I've missed out something, please feel free to add.
No, that was a really good introduction. Thank you very much.
Okay, so let's get started. I think the first thing that all of us want to know is what exactly a sports scientist does. How did you get into it? How did it become an interest of yours? And obviously your journey through your experience, right? Like working at Sports Authority of India, and then obviously the Female Athlete Support Project. A little bit about that for the whole community.
Absolutely, yeah. So it's as you rightly mentioned, it's been a long time for me being in the industry, but just being a part of Sports Authority of India came towards the later half of my career. So initially, I did my undergrad in physiotherapy. Was always involved in sports, from the school level. So I knew that somewhere I wanted to get into the sports industry. Having worked as a physio, I wanted to move into the sports industry after, and that's when I moved to Columbia University in US and did my master's in physiology.
Okay.
And when I moved back to India, that's when I, started working with JSW Sports, more in the role of physiology, supporting athletes with nutrition support, and then got into Sai as a lead exercise physiologist. My initiative for the female athlete support really started during my tenure at IIS, JSW Sports, and which is where I identified the need for a specific program to identify and support the females with their specific physiological needs and how it all starts to act up, especially during your sporting career. And I thought there was this big gap which needed to be addressed, in terms of educating the athletes, supporting them in whichever way we can through a huge multidisciplinary support system. So that's where it all began.
So how is it? The female athlete support program? If somebody wants to know more about it, or somebody wants to, let's say, give a contribution or take basically some sort, basically support the cause in some way. Is there a way that people can do it?
I think the main sort of driver for the program was just creating awareness around the whole, I don't want to call it an issue, but, the whole phenomena. So clearly as a, female athlete, there's lots of changes that are going on, through your body, through puberty. A lot of young girls participate in the sport, but there's a huge dropout as well, just because how their bodies are changing. There's menstruation that starts. They don't know how to sort of cope with it, how to deal with it. So that was sort of the main driver to increase the knowledge. First of all, there are other apart from IIS, there are also now other sporting organizations which are which have people especially working with female athletes just to support their needs and give them the right tools to say navigate their symptoms and things like that. So I think getting in touch with these organizations, like of IAS, would be a good starting point.
Okay, that's great. You obviously worked in US and even now in UK, right? And I'm sure you have seen the Indian whole sport industry kind of come up over the last 5-10 years. So in your experience, do you think any progress happening in the right direction, especially versus what you have seen in US and now what you're seeing in UK? What's your
No,
view on that?
absolutely. I think in the last couple of years, a huge progress has been made in the Indian sporting industry as well. Of course, there are a couple of differences, that I've noticed in terms of, infrastructure, technology, and the education being a big one as well. So there are, practitioners in India now, because there are courses now starting which are more applied,
Okay,
that you can, graduate, get some relevant sporting experience, and then, be a part of these wonderful sport organizations in India now. So, and, the field of sports science is a rapidly growing field as well. There's always new technology, new efficient technology coming up to support, coaches and the athletes towards the training. So keeping up with that. And I see the Indian organizations, the likes of SAI, doing that already, getting high quality staff, building the right infrastructures, getting the right equipment, technology to help with that. And not just that, if there are any, staff people working there, then also investing in the people. So, even if it's sending them abroad for continuous professional development, or getting them, just signed up and getting them connected with different professionals around the world. So I would say there's definitely lots that's happening, and, lots that we can still do, but the progress is absolutely spectacular. So definitely a lot of things have changed.
I mean that's great. That's great to hear from you, especially you have been very close to it. We obviously see it from the outside as much as we can. I think one thing
No.
that uh, probably I lost my thought, but one thing that I was looking at is that sports science, right? I mean, it's actually not just one discipline, right? Because sports science can be sports performance, it can be sports recovery, it can also be sports engineering in terms of the equipment part of it, right? So
Yes.
sports by itself is not so much. Sports science itself doesn't have like one discipline. So right now, how does somebody want if they want to learn sports science within India? So what are the key notable institutes that one can go to? Is that something you would be able to share with us as well?
Um, so the branch of sports science and medicine, in fact, it's basically support stuff, we call it, for the athlete, for the coach, um, which can have different branches. There's sports physiotherapy that you could get involved in. There is
Okay.
more, the physical preparation side of things. A strength and conditioning career is something that you could pursue if you're, more into the fitness side of things. There's of course physiology that you can, become, which is more understanding the physiology and, the metabolic demands of the sport, and
Okay.
support the athletes that way. A huge part of it would be supporting the athletes through their recovery process. Performance nutrition can be a big one as well. So, there's lots of different fields when it comes to sports science and medicine support. And really picking up your niche and interest, is going to be helpful. There's lots of institutes. Just the one, that I can think of on the top of my head is Manipal University is one. There's an Institute of Sports and Technology in Pune. That's another one that I can think of on the top of my head. And there's also institutes in Amritsar,
Okay.
which are really, graduating a lot of good practitioners. So those those could be some starting points.
That's great. So hopefully this gives us our community enough, so to speak, pointers to understand about sports science, and if they want to something pursue as an option, you can obviously look these up. Yeah.
Yeah, one more thing that I would like to add is, of course, studying at all of these prestige universities and institutes is great. But I think one of the things that I've noticed in the sports science industry is also having the relevant experience. That's where it becomes to start, different than, someone having studied abroad, being able to apply what you're learning. I think is really, really critical. And also, I think, when you graduate right away, volunteering and doing unpaid work in the beginning is not uncommon. So, also something to have in the back of the mind when
Yeah.
you're starting to look out. Yeah.
Especially if we see right now, obviously from a recreation standpoint as well, there's so much happens in the country right now. I mean, the number of marathons like runs in thousands, right? Because I
Yeah.
mean, right now is a marathon season going on. So I was just, let's say, close to my house, and my dad actually ran a marathon, his first marathon or walkathon last weekend.
Oh,
So,
brilliant.
I had to go and drop him at 6 o'clock in the morning. But on the way back, I was seeing the like three marathons going on in that same small region within Mumbai. So that was very encouraging to see, right? And a lot of people have kind of turned up like 6 o'clock in the morning. The sun was still down, so it was an
Yeah.
interesting experience. Otherwise, I don't usually end up getting at 6 o'clock these days. So, but it's not very late for me as well. I get up at 6:30 and go for my tennis, but that's another story.
Which is great. Yeah.
No. So that's great, right? I think that gives us a fairly good idea about what the Sports Authority of India does and the science of it. Now let's start getting into the topic that we had to discuss. So I think the two things that we wanted to discuss was whole around the whole active lifestyle, right? And how do we kind of simplify it? Because I was reading this startling fact somewhere that 67% of gym memberships actually go completely unused. So it always happens. People actually go enroll for gyms, and these are their plethora of options, right? So they are recreation sport. Like I go and play tennis at the academy close to me. They are basically aggregators like Hurdle, right, where you can actually book and play whatever you want. So
Yeah.
options are immense, right? There's obviously all kind of Zumba, online, offline, all formats are there, right? But in spite
Yeah.
of that, I mean, when you see numbers coming out, there was another startling fact that I read in one of these Red Sea report was that India soon could actually become uh, basically home to 1 billion lifestyle diseases incidents, so to speak. And in spite of all the options, right? So somewhere I think people still struggle with beyond all the options because probably having options is not the answer, right? So just to get your expert opinion, especially I'm sure you would have worked with athletes, you would have worked with common people as well who probably have the same struggle, right? And one of the motives that we have at Miracle is basically to give people information and how we can help them in making themselves more active on a day-to-day basis, right? It might not need that you're preparing for Olympic or anything, just a more
Yeah.
active lifestyle, just to keep healthy and obviously enjoy whatever kind of life brings your way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think just to sort of start with your point around the dropouts with the gym, I think that's really shocking. I did not know it was such a big number. I think what it then boils down to is a lack of education, a lack of awareness. Like, um, I know people and, have come across people in the past who would, go get a gym membership, but I think there's just lack of awareness around how to then start to train.
Yeah,
If you see a piece of equipment, how to best use it. And I think, and which is fine, not everyone's expected to know them right away, but I think just making yourself aware of all these things. I don't know if that's something that needs to change within the education system, that, things like these, basic exercises need to start getting educated right at the school level. So I think just awareness around training is something that's lacking. When you go to the gym, you don't know what you're doing. Some people can get, personal trainers, people that can support. But I think then another caveat to that is if we are getting, people say in the gym supporting us, what is the standard of service that they're providing? Because that's another thing that, could be improved, which is if we have, people supporting us through the journey, is there a level of quality of service that we're maintaining? All of these different countries I've observed, there's, some level of certifications, that this person is, they've studied, they're qualified to give me a professional opinion and, help me out in the journey. So I feel like, those could be the reasons, um, sort of, linking towards such a high dropout from the gym. So, definitely education, awareness. And if you don't have, you can seek out experts like myself, reach out to them and, get help to get started, because it's always just a huge learning curve initially. But, once you learn how to move, well, how to eat healthy, it just should become a part of your lifestyle.
yeah,
And yeah, so I think those are some of the factors. And a lot of time, it could just be like, you're mentioning you're getting up at 6:30, and, you're doing that for something that, you're passionate about, you're enjoying. So I think everyone's got really busy lifestyles, and, I know you step out of the house, sit in the car, and that's your half an hour, 1 hour gone. But, just taking out time, planning time, taking out time for yourself, even at 5, 10, 15 minutes to begin with. Every morning I'm going to get up instead of 7 o'clock at 6:45, so I can have 10 minutes for myself to go walk around the house. Then, the next week you make it 15 minutes, and the week after you make it 20 minutes. And, just starting small. Doesn't even have to be a gym membership.
Yeah.
Just going to your community park. Thanks to the Indian government, we have, these gym equipments in the park itself. So, just learning how to use them and then just going for it.
I mean, that's been an interesting trend. Actually, you brought it out because you see over the course of last 5 years, a lot of the common parks have these equipments now, which people can actually
Yeah.
use. And we have seen in
Yeah.
small communities as well. I mean, even places like remote places as well. So I think that's obviously an encouraging, so to speak, trend, right?
Yeah.
But I think a lot of
Yeah.
this with the whole, I mean, gym is just one example, and that's just a fact that I came across. But I think it's the same with everything else. Also, people kind of start doing something on an active journey, they get motivated, right? But motivation is obviously very, very short term. I mean,
Yeah.
motivation is only going to get you somewhere, right? So
Yeah.
ultimately, if you're able to kind of build the right habit, right, because habits is what will essentially help you stay consistent day in and day out,
Yeah.
and that's what essentially, and part of it is also environment, right? So I read this very interesting book called Atomic Habits. I don't know if you've read it. we
Yeah.
actually
Yeah.
we actually gave it away to some of our community members as well, because that is
Okay.
one thing that really kind of resonated with me, that it's basically a solution to anything that you want to achieve, right? You have to
Right.
basically shape your environment, you have to really build the right habit, and then obviously do it. And absolutely what you said, right? It doesn't, you don't have to do it all in one day, right? Because I've done it many times in life. You basically get so energized, let's say, on, I mean, people say, right, the maximum gym membership happen in the first 10 days of any new year, right? Because people have a
Yeah.
resolution, I want to get healthy. And by the by the 30th, I mean, everybody has, half the people have stopped going to the gym. Only the ones who used to go earlier basically continue. And I mean, we have all gone through this journey. It's not that, I think we're all human beings. So I have
Yeah.
personally gone through that as well. But yeah, I think again, coming back to the point, right? I think the idea is to, that these challenges are obviously there, right? And they're not going to go away. So obviously we can read a book and some of us will be able to follow it and build a habit over a period of time. I think one thing that at least I have found useful is to basically do something that kind of you like doing, like to the core of your heart, and you're just not doing for, like, say, for the sake of staying healthy or basically reducing weight or kind of that, right? And we have been fortunate enough now, right? At least this generation we have. So with the whole recreation scene that's just coming up right now, recreation sports, people can actually take up sports later in their life as well, right? And there are sports
Yeah.
that you can take. For example, I play tennis uh, at whatever age I am. I'm like 40 plus right now. So I'm able to play tennis and I've always enjoyed playing sport, right? So it doesn't feel like exercise to me when I go and play sport for that 1 hour. Obviously, I have now a group of friends, we socialize, we do whatever we have to do, but it doesn't come as like exercise time. So I don't really have to push myself on my bed and say, okay, you have to really go and exercise, because that's what it used to be when we were kids, right? I mean, we
Yeah.
essentially, like, I could wake up at like 5 o'clock in the morning for a game of cricket. We obviously used to love cricket. So
Yeah.
there was no motivation required, and nobody had to wake us up. There was no alarm clock that was required at times as well. So I don't think
Yeah.
alarm clocks are required if you are internally motivated to do any of these things. Obviously, everybody has to find their, whatever their calling is. Having said that, I think everybody does get bored by doing a specific activity. So I don't know, in your experience, what are the three biggest challenges kind of people face, or maybe either one or two, whatever challenges people face, and what could they kind of do to overcome that, right? And if you have any, let's say, small one or two tips that people can actually get started today, and take that step towards being more active, right? Obviously, it's a journey and it's not
Hmm.
just happen in one day, but whatever
Yeah.
you can share from your experience would obviously help the community.
No, absolutely. I think in terms of, you bring up a lot of good points there, Tarun. So I think it's, first of all, having a plan. So, on the same theme as what you were mentioning with the atomic habits. So having a plan, not just, okay, I'm going to start exercising from tomorrow, something as abstract as that. No, I'm going to get up at 6:45. I'm going to be out of the house at 7. I'm going to come back at 7:20 and then, carry on with my usual day. So being as specific as you can, that could be, a good thing.
Okay.
Once you're out of the door at 7 o'clock, you've already sort of thought in your head, or spoke to a friend or spoke to a practitioner who can tell you what exactly to get started with as well. You can't just go being from not doing anything to start running 20 minutes. That might not go well with your body. You might feel more pains and aches, and we can talk about that later as well. So having a structured plan on what you're going to start doing from, say, couch to exercise, for example, getting as specific as you can, finding something that you enjoy as well. So that could be playing a sport, that could be dancing, that could be yoga, that could be walking a dog, that could be going to the gym, anything, whatever makes your body move, essentially. So I think that's mostly from the movement side of things as well. I think another thing that we can start to do when we're talking about active lifestyle and being healthy is also starting to become more mindful of what we are putting in our body as well. So what is it
Okay.
that we are eating? So fine, I'm starting to exercise, say 20 minutes every day, but then every evening I'm having 2 samosas with my chai. So is that really helping, my 20 minutes in the morning? Like, is what I'm doing through the rest of the day is really helping with, what I'm trying to achieve? And it might not be just a number on the scale. It might not be that I want to shed 3 kgs or 5 kgs or 10 kgs or whatever it is. There's lots of other benefits to exercise as well. And to what you alluded earlier, the lifestyle diseases. So the likes of hypertension, you start to walk, your hypertension can improve with exercise. But you can't say that I'm exercising and it's not improving while you're eating samosas and gulab jamun the rest of the day. So you need to start to balance it out somewhere, and that's where exercise gets blamed all the time as well. And just this notion of, oh, you're exercising because you're trying to lose weight. No, I'm exercising because I want to be healthy, and I want to make sure that whatever rest of the 23 hours 40 minutes I'm doing is supporting that 20-minute of exercises that I've started to incorporate. So I think looking at the big picture would be one. And on the same note, I think one of the challenges then is, people, when we talk about exercise or incorporating, a healthy lifestyle, people start to look at the big things. They start to look at, oh, I need to buy a gym membership. I need to, maybe start to buy all these, different products on the market. It doesn't have to always start like that. It has to start small. Um, Say, for example, if I tell someone, oh, I'm going to give you this one magic thing,
Yeah.
which is going to say, improve your testosterone by 25%. Everyone's going to go for it, without realizing that that one magic thing is actually sleep. They're always going for, what is that one shortcut? What is that one magic thing that I can do? Instead of sticking with the basics, training well, eating healthy, and getting adequate sleep of 7 to 8 hours. And a lot of time that can just be enough to start, an active lifestyle and, follow a healthy living, instead of, trying to look for shortcuts or that one magic thing or that one magic pill. Um, that's going to just solve everything for me. So you do need to get up early in the morning sometimes or have late nights, uh, but you need to
Oh,
have some sort
or
of a routine to go through.
or have samosas, because obviously as Indians we love our samosas,
I
and some
know.
of that
That's why
because
I picked up on that.
we we just have
Yeah.
so many festivals. So I think so it's important to enjoy life as well. But yeah, at the same point, I think as you rightly said, we have to find that balance, right? And
Yeah.
I think important is to really listen to your body, because that's the key thing. And that's the most difficult part. At least what I have seen in my journey as well. You kind of lose that connection from your body, and when you're obviously young, everything kind of works for you. But if you take it for granted, as you kind of get older, your body is trying to tell you something, but sometimes you just basically overpower that and say, oh, doesn't matter. My body might be saying, okay, one samosa is enough. No, I'll go for like couple more because it just tastes so nice. So,
Yeah,
but I think
yeah. Nothing against samosas. Like I love
yeah, yeah,
samosas myself, but I think
absolutely.
the point I'm trying to make across is, then making sure that all, whatever we're doing the rest of the day, our eating habits are also healthy instead of,
Yeah, and if you
just
if you make a samosa
overeating.
at home, make it a like nice fresh oil. Obviously, there's healthy ways of doing
Exactly.
that as well. So, yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So
So
that's on that, right? And I think the idea is to start small and obviously start with whatever you feel motivated towards, and then kind of going towards something what your neighbor is doing, because that obviously might not kind of resonate with you as much. And again, it's probably a journey, right? I mean, you might try something, you might like something, you might not like something. So you have to try out different things. And I've also seen, I think for some people, it's like a seasonal thing also, right? So when you go through like a whole year, like some season they might feel like swimming, for example, right? Summers they might want to say, okay, I will probably swim and that's my exercise. Whereas let's say in winters they might want to play a sport, or they might just want to go out for a run because, I mean, especially let's say in a place like Bombay, which is hot pretty much throughout the and quite humid. December is quite nice, right? So you really just feel like going out in the open, just walk or run or do whatever it is. So I think all great points, and I think that's a message essentially to start small. I mean, start what you kind of love or what you think you used to love as a kid. So start
yeah,
something there. I mean, it could be anything, right? It doesn't have to be a fancy gym membership. Doesn't have to be, let's say, a fancy club membership as well. There are umpteen number of opportunities out there. Especially, I think in the last 2 3 years, even there's so many home workouts at all levels, right, which are there.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. So
No,
that's great, right?
absolutely.
I think. Yeah. Anything else you want to add on that, Soumya? Otherwise, we can move to the next topic.
No, I think pretty much mentioned all the things in the top of my head. So good to
Great,
go.
great. So the next topic we want to discuss the whole recovery piece, right? Because whenever you get into any sort of physical exercise, obviously you hear a lot about recovery, right? To basically, and recovery is a very important part of you to kind of, one is the starting on the active lifestyle journey, and obviously you have to recover and take care of your recovery so that you can continue or stay on that active lifestyle journey. Because if sometimes you don't do that, you obviously, I mean, get a setback, and then it's difficult to kind of get up and get started again. So I think from you as an expert, we obviously wanted to understand, we obviously, I mean, keep hearing all these things, right, about recovery, but just the science part of the recovery, why recovery is so important, what happens to a body when we exercise, and why recovery becomes such an important part to really focus on, right? And what are the some again key challenges, and maybe a few tips that we all can kind of start looking at from today itself to be able to focus on that important piece of the whole active lifestyle journey as well.
Yeah. So simply put, recovery. So in terms of say exercise, is getting your body back into the state of homeostasis. Okay, so say for example, someone runs a marathon. Okay, or that might be too extreme. Say someone goes to the gym for the first time. So anytime you exercise, be it running, be it gym, there's a lot of wear and tear that happens in the muscles. Okay, so imagine it being, like a cotton cloth, your muscle.
Okay.
So, a lot of fibers are going to start to come out. It's just a normal physiological process. What is happening during the process of recovery is basically our muscles, that cotton sheet is getting put back together. Everything's becoming fine, and your body is ready to go through the whole process again. A lot of factors, however, can start to impact how well we are recovering. Okay.
Okay.
Um, First can be if a couple of things can start to improve recovery. However, if I go to the gym today and I think, oh, that was really nice, I'm going to go again tomorrow, I'm going to go again tomorrow, and I keep going every day for, say, a week, okay, what's going to then start to happen is I'm going to start to feel a lot of, just response from my body, okay? And that's just because I've been stressing my body and I've not given it enough rest to start to adapt, to start to recover. So, how we sort of understand it scientifically is that if I keep stressing and if I don't recover, I'm going to start to become in a state of overtraining where I'm putting
Okay.
in the effort, I'm going every day, but I'm not seeing the right impact. And that's when recovery comes in. Okay. So every time someone exercises, you need to make sure that you're getting enough rest days as well because that's when the magic is happening. If you see someone, exercising, their muscles are growing, they're becoming fitter. It's not like, your muscles are growing just when you're doing a bicep curl. It's not like that. It's the muscles are growing, the muscles are adapting when you're actually resting and feeding your body the right things. So I think there is this whole sort of misconception of, I don't need recovery, I'm fine. But stress plus rest is equal to growth. If you apply stress, you don't rest and recover, then you're not going to see growth. Now, there are a couple of things that can start to help with recovery. Um, Again, the sort of basic pillars are your rest. So you might be, training a lot, but if you're still sleeping 5 or 6 hours a day, you're not giving your body enough time to rest. Hence, you don't see the changes or the improvements.
So
The
what would be
second one being,
what would be the right
yeah,
number of hours of day if you're, I mean, you said 5 to 6 hours
seven
is
to eight.
probably okay.
Yeah, so I would aim for 7 to 8. If you're lucky, get some more hours through the weekends. That's great. There's also research to support that if you're not able to get, say, your 8 hours of sleep, you can sometimes include small naps during the day to accumulate the amount of sleep time. Again, the best time to nap would be before at 3 p.m. and not have a nap close to, your 4 or 5 p.m. because then that can start to interfere with, the quality and quantity of sleep later in the day. So starting to include naps to try and, bulk up on that sleep time is one strategy. The second thing that helps with recovery, again, is food. And that
Okay.
doesn't mean a protein shake. It just means when you've trained, you're not skipping a meal after, um, but you're having a full meal, a meal that includes carbohydrates, could be rice, could be roti, idli, whatever you fancy, needs to have protein. Again, could be different things for vegetarian, non-vegetarians. One thing to be mindful of, if someone's a vegetarian, is the amount of protein that you would need would be more. So, say for example, a piece of chicken, 100-gram piece of chicken might have 20 grams of protein, but 100-gram of dal will not have 20 grams of protein. You will probably need to have more dal to get the 20 grams of protein. So, just understanding the resources, the options that are available, milk, yogurt, tofu, paneer, getting lots of protein in your diet as well. And not just for dinner or not just for lunch, but breakfast, lunch, maybe something in the evening, and then dinner. And then the last thing for recovery would be your hydration. Okay, just drinking enough, especially if you're in a hot, humid environment, you're not drinking enough, your muscles are not happy because they're not getting the fluid. So I would stick with just the basics. It doesn't have to be all those fancy gadgets, to help you with recovery. It doesn't have to be protein shakes. It can just be simply eating well, sleeping well, and hydrating. I think as tools for recovery, and that's what the elite athletes are doing as well. They're not doing anything magical. They have a good structure. They follow a good routine. They sleep well. They eat well. They really take care of the body, and that's what gives them success as well.
And in terms of number of days of recovery, for example, if somebody is working out at a moderate intensity, right, or as a starter, so they should take like 1 day a week as a recovery day, or like a couple of days. How does it work?
So if you're participating in moderate intensity, it would be somewhere around 5 days a week that you would train. Again, that could depend on, what days of the week you want to take rest. My suggestion would then be listen to your body. If you're feeling you can train Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, no problem, and your body's saying, okay, take Thursday a rest, do that. If you just go to train Monday, Tuesday, and you want to take a Wednesday off, just listen to your body. There are different sort of guidelines which are out there. For light activity, you could very well participate 6 to 7 days. If you're doing high intensity, again, which could differ, for different people, could be 3 to 4 days a week. So there are different guidelines out there for recovery.
And we see all of this on internet as well. I think a lot of things have said about cold baths, right? So cold baths and cold packs. So is that something also that basically, I mean, helps with the recovery or helps improve our, let's say, athletic or active performance, so to speak?
Yeah. So in scientific terms, that's called cold water immersion. So you would typically do that for 9 to 11 minutes for around 9 to 12 degrees Celsius of water temperature. In terms of the benefits of it, there's a lot of mixed evidence out there, to be honest.
Okay.
Um, that being said, athletes are using it and it's really individual. Some athletes would see a lot of benefits, some would not. When we talk about cold water immersion, there's also one big thing to be aware of is the timing of it. So when I say timing, it's when you're using it. So for example, cold water immersion is, suggested to be used, say, after a high intensity, endurance type activity. However, if you've been to the gym and you've been lifting heavy weights, I wouldn't then recommend someone to, right after the gym session, go into the cold water, because again, when you're training, there's a lot of things happening in your body, and there's this protein called mTOR. Sorry for getting a little bit sciencey, but that's the big protein that's helping you grow muscles, and that then starts to get interfered if you put someone in a cold water right after strength training. So people can go into cold water immersion. Suggest to do that after endurance training and not after strength training. You can have a 48-hour gap and then do after strength training.
But just a cold water bath at our home should be fine, right? I mean, that should be okay.
as as long as it's 9 to 12 degrees Celsius. Yeah. If you don't have a bath, maybe you could use a shower. But
Yeah, I mean,
again, there's
just
not
a
much
cold shower.
research.
Okay.
Yeah, but there's not much research done into shower, just because the physiology is when you're in the water, there's a lot of pressure from the water as well. So there's vasoconstriction that's happening, which is actually causing the physiological benefits of being in the water. To be honest, I'm not sure if there's been something done with you being under the shower. But it's again really individual. It's it could sometimes be placebo as well. If just the cold water is doing the magic for you, then by all means continue it.
And I think this is also more for, let's say, kind of professionals or somebody who's trying to get more competitive. The whole cold water immersion, probably not for like normal people who are just basically
Yeah.
trying to stay active in an active lifestyle.
Yeah. So, say for example, say footballers right now would be using it a lot during, the World Cup season, because you have games every 2 days. Right after the game, you want to start the recovery process right away. So, you go into the cold water, start the recovery process right away, and that's also I've done with athletes in the past. Say, working with boxers, they have bouts every day. So right after the day one, you would put them in an ice bath. So we start the recovery process right away, and then they feel better recovered. Of course, having slept well, eaten well, hydrated well, they feel better the next day, and then they're ready to go again.
Okay, so I think what I gathered is basically three key important things, right? One is to obviously give yourself a break. So work out for 5 to 6 days a week, depending on the intensity that you're doing. And obviously, the key 3 points you talked about is eating, sleeping right for the number of hours, and obviously hydration, right? So that's a simple formula of recovery, or at least for the normal people who are trying to just stay active, live a healthy, active lifestyle. These three things should be more than enough if they're able to stick to a schedule.
Yeah, yeah. So what we call these are the fundamentals of recovery. So these are kind of like, if you look at it from like, these are the base of the pillars, and then you can start to add in, the different techniques using, massage, stretching, cold water immersion. There's also this thing called contrast water immersion, which is hot and cold combination. There's cryotherapy out there. So all of these can, then start to add as top-ons, but really getting the basics right with those three techniques would be the key for someone starting out. Yeah.
Okay. No, that was very, very insightful. I think, especially on the recovery, it's so confusing because there's so many options out there. There's so many different companies who are trying to basically sell you products for recovery and so on and so forth, right? And that's been kind of going on. So it really helps to
Yeah.
simplify this and really bring to the table that it's not as difficult to really follow if you just do the three most important things, and everything else obviously comes as you become more advanced in your active journey. People obviously will get more options.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anything else on recovery you want to add? Otherwise, we can look at an overall summary and then obviously conclude the
Yeah.
discussion. Yeah.
I think I would just like to reiterate that, it doesn't have to be as complicated. Like if you're following a good schedule, if you're eating well every day when you're treating and you're taking care of your body, then recovery should just naturally fall in when you're listening to your body. You could be, sitting in a cold bath all day, but if you're skipping your breakfast, not eating enough protein through the day, or sleeping 5 hours, all that, fancy, things you're eating or sitting in the bath is not going to help. Just do the basics right. And then, as your fitness journey progresses, you're going to become familiar with all of these other techniques. And then you can start to incorporate. So just, not getting caught up in the finer details, but really just getting out there, moving, I think would be my message.
Yeah. I think this is more for me personally because I know we all kind of hear this a lot of time, right? That listen to your body. So I know it's easier said than done. But for example, I keep telling myself, okay, listen to your body. And I know some people who actually meditate on it, right? And say, okay, from today I will listen to my body. I'll try and cut down on my body doesn't need so much. I don't need to eat beyond 6:37, whatever it is. But somehow I think that really goes off, right? So I don't know what's your version, or if you have like a shortcut to really how can one start listening to their body better, right? Because I think that is something we have kind of, especially I have kind of lost connect, and I'm trying to basically get back on that, right? So my physical part of activity is fine, but I think the diet
Yeah.
is something that I still need to kind of conquer as part of this journey.
Yeah. So there's this one sort of technique that we use with the athletes, and it's really commonly used among globally. Actually, is something called a wellness questionnaire. So that's something that we implement with the athletes, which is basically just taking some time to dial in and just answer a few questions on how you're feeling. So how was my sleep last night? And it just doesn't mean that, oh, I got in the bed at 10 o'clock and I got up at 7 o'clock. It's really, how much time were you sleeping? What was your quality like? So taking some time to think about that. How is my mood? Because, if you're maybe just constantly grumpy, and if you don't know, you can ask people who, share the house with you. That's maybe suggesting that, you're not recovered. You need to take, some time off. Um, you can start to look at your appetite. If your appetite's suppressed, you're thinking, oh, I'm going to the gym, I'm not feeling hungry. The appetite is suppressed. That could be an indication that you're overtrained and you're not getting enough recovery. You could start to look at, if you're someone who wears like a smartwatch, you can start to look at, oh, is my resting heart rate? So say, for example, your resting heart rate is constantly around 65. If you're not recovered, then your resting heart rate is going to start to pick up. Oh, this morning I noticed my resting heart rate is now 70, or the next
Okay.
week it's 72. So that's an indicator that, your body is not resting. There's another parameter which, often some of the watches are tracking is called heart rate variability. So that's another marker that you can start to use. So normally we want the resting heart rate to be low, but the variability number, again, could be a couple of numbers, whichever number you're looking at, needs to be high. Okay, so if our heart is healthy, it will respond to different things. If I get up and someone screams at me, my heart rate would go up. If I'm sitting down, I'm calm, my heart rate would go down. So if my heart rate variability is high, it means I'm well recovered. So a couple of things, markers like that we can start to look at. So your mood, your appetite, your sleep, how hungry are you feeling when you wake up? Just, overall general feeling could be some of the markers that you could, start to sit down and dial in and just assess for yourself.
Okay. I mean, just one last
Yeah.
question, and then I think we can just conclude and uh, physically conclude the discussion. Is the whole you said appetite, right? So and I think a lot of people also complain that that whole sense of hunger, right? I mean, hunger is kind of become for us a very different sort of experience. I think the food has kind of gotten into each and every, so to speak, experience of our being, right now. I mean, everything is all about food. So if you watch a
Yeah.
movie, you want to order a pizza. If you want a match, you want to have a beer with your friends, something like that, right? and
Yeah.
and and there obviously it's not only about hunger anything or satiating hunger, it's more become like a whole experience. So I don't know if that is something obviously athletes also kind of struggle at some point, right? And how do they kind of overcome, or do you have any, so to speak, tips that we as normal people can kind of try and do it?
Yeah. I think the first thing maybe that comes to mind is not associating hunger with boredom. I'm bored, so let me just get up and go to the kitchen, open the fridge, and eat. So, you know, keeping yourself fairly busy and not associating hunger with boredom. I think that's what most of us tend to do.
Yeah,
I think in terms of
absolutely.
some tips would be keep hydrating yourself through the day. Okay, that can a lot of time take care of the appetite, and when needed, induce the appetite as well. So stay hydrated. Always carry a water bottle with you, and every meal, make sure you're including some source of protein as well. Because what protein does is it keeps you fuller for longer. Okay, so you will realize if you eat like only a slice of toast, you might start to feel hungry, say an hour or 2 hours later. If you add in, a couple of eggs with it, so some protein is going to keep you fuller for longer. So that can one thing that people can start to include as well. They're all, whatever method you feel is right for you. Is it three square meals, breakfast, lunch, dinner? Is it including meals, snacks in middle? Just stick with that thing. There's no right and wrong, way to do it as long as you're consistent with it and your body's liking that method. So, and of course, I think when it comes to food and when it comes to active lifestyle, I have to mention not indulging in anything like a yo-yo diet. Okay, I'm going to try this for a week and then you lose a bunch of weight. And that's mostly the water that you're losing, scientifically speaking, and then you gain it back again. So, enjoy food. Food is a huge part of our social life. You're maybe going to be only training once, but you eat, 3 or 4 times a day. So it's a massive, part of our day. So enjoy food, but once in a while indulge yourself. Uh, but rest of the time, just be a little bit mindful of what you're eating.
Yeah, and I think one point that comes to my mind, especially from the same book, Atomic Habits, right, is basically look at your environment, because obviously, if everything that you can see in the house is basically chips and wafers and all of that, then obviously that's what you want to go, right? So he basically says that you have to incentivize yourself. So incentivize good behavior in the short term. So basically,
Yeah,
give yourself, first is change the environment. So keep, let's say, wholesome fruits on the table,
yeah,
so that if you feel
yeah,
hungry, you just, I mean, banana is tasty enough, right? Banana, I mean, I
yeah,
really love banana. It's easiest to eat. Everybody
yeah,
loves it. Children love it. But some of the time, I think the access to that is like way inside, right? And all you can see is, let's say, all these probably not so healthy things which are out there, and that's obviously becomes a easier impulse. So that's what
yeah,
this say he said in that book as well. Incentivize good behavior in the short term, so that basically you train yourself to kind of do it again and again. Because right now the way it is, I mean, all the wrong behaviors are incentivized. Like we eat a popcorn, we eat the chips, we feel satiated that time. Obviously, after 15 minutes, we might not feel great. Whereas any good behavior, which is exercise or something, we don't see an immediate benefit, right? We only see a benefit way down the line, because you have to be
yeah,
consistent, you have to do all of that. So if you can
right,
find a way to incentivize good behavior in the short term, and basically de-incentivize or penalize bad behavior, or just remove that from your house, right, in terms of environment. So your environment kind of shapes you. I mean, that's a very old saying. I mean,
yeah,
and that works with your food, that works with your habits, that works with your friend circle, that works with your social circle as well.
absolutely.
So yeah, I mean, these are things obviously that obviously you have to implement. I think one is obviously knowing it, and the other is to try and implement. But again, I think very basic fundamental steps. So thank you so much for sharing it. Just to summarize, right? I think what we discussed was to just start small in terms of active lifestyle. Do something that you enjoy doing, not something
Yeah,
which is a trend, because I mean the trend is not really going to last, right? So you have to try
yeah,
different things, and obviously start small, and then obviously build on it as you go along and as you enjoy the journey. Otherwise, keep on trying different things and see what kind of works for you. And again, I think in terms of recovery, you talked about eating right, wholesome meat, sleeping, obviously, and hydration, right? So very basic. But these are some of the takeaways that we all can kind of take with us and essentially try and implement in our day-to-day life to lead a more active life, while obviously taking care of our body, listening to ourselves, and build ourselves towards that foundation uh, to basically live a healthy, longer life in that sense. Uh, anything else, Soumya, to conclude, or I pretty much kind of talked about everything?
I think just in the end, I would like to conclude by saying that, start moving, start exercising. If you're looking for one magic pill, one magic drug out there that can take care of all the lifestyle diseases, can make you happy, and, and also help you lose weight, that's, some one of your incentives, and that's exercise. So it doesn't have to cost anything. You just need to go out and move. Just take time for yourself. Take time for your physical health as well. And that one thing is going to take care of a lot of things, knowingly or unknowingly. Yeah.
Mm,
So
very well put, Soumya. Thank you so much for that. And where can people reach out to you? Are you there on Instagram? Are you there on any social places, social channels where people can reach out to you if they have any questions? Obviously, people can write questions just under this video in the comment section, and we will work with Soumya to have those responded to. But if somebody wants to reach out to you for any specific guidance or any coaching, mentoring, anything, where can they do that?
So I'm on Instagram too. I can be reached at Jefferson Performance. On Instagram, my website is jeffersonperformance.com. Can be reached there. I'm on LinkedIn, Twitter, everything by the name of Saumya Khullar. So you should be able to find me easily.
Sure. And we will make sure that we'll add these links in the comments as well for people to
Yeah.
really be able to search, and if they have any question, they can reach out to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's great. Thank you, Soumya. Thank you so much for making the time. So that's all we had time for today. Again, thank you so much for making the time, Soumya. And if you have any questions, you can obviously write to us in captions. And if you like the content and all the discussion that we had today, please make sure to share with your friends, family, dear ones, and obviously turn on the notification bell and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much, Soumya. So until next time, make sure to reboot, recover, go. Thank you so much.